Do you know of any women in the family who would have dealt with any issues involving like leg swelling or like fluid retention? It would have to be an identifiable feature in a person. And the way this comes across, there's this feeling of like, the way I want to describe it is like I want to like plop up my leg with this, and then I'm seeing like my feet being rubbed, and like it's just a lot of visuals that are basically referencing to like fluid retention. Do you know what I'm talking about with this?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't get this out of my head. It keeps coming through. Like if we think of this person, we think of the leg swelling or something. She's very much acknowledging like being able to see your success. The feeling is that she saw this in you in some way before it ever even happened.
Well, her name was Rosalila. She was my mom's sister. She just passed away 5 months ago. She died from a knee replacement. The operation didn't work out, and she retained a lot of fluid, like you said, and it was a complication from the operation. So she passed away. She was a very close aunt because she was my mom's sister. I wasn't looking to make a connection with her, but it would be very like my aunt to be presenting herself and be very pushy and trying to be part of the whole thing. She was always very involved and always like following me on what I was doing in my career. I think she's gonna be happy that her picture and that she looks so pretty is on TV.
Oh, absolutely.
It was always kind of funny to be around her. That was very, amazing. Unless they're on our close family, nobody could have known the cause of her death.
He's like an integral part of when it comes to your career, where things are going towards the future. It's like he informs so much of this.
You nailed it.
Awesome.
You're talking about my father. His name is Michael, and he passed away in his 50s. He wanted me to be successful. He would be like, you're gonna sing and you're gonna play the flute. And I was like, but I don't know how to sing. He's like, you're gonna sing anyway.
You figured it out, yep.
I feel like that is actually still happening.
I agree, absolutely. And when he comes through, he's still so involved in your career. It makes sense.
So involved.
So he's having me talk about you, and then I'm saying family responsibilities.
There's a whole list of them.
Sure. He's having me talk about a very important emphasis on location. For some reason, he's putting one of them separate. I don't really know how to describe this. Figure out what this is.
My sister and I, we were in 2 different cities, and my father was in a different city when he passed away.
Okay, that makes sense. He's having me talk about a delay in informing someone of his passing. And there's this whole thing that's coming through about like someone who should have gotten immediately notified, or it's like everybody else is informed except this one person.
I'm so afraid of this one moment that happened in my life that I'm afraid of every moment now. I was the last to know.
Gotcha.
I missed the phone call.
Ah, okay.
It was very jarring. I was in the shower.
Gotcha.
And I had all these missed phone calls.
Wow.
And then I called my sister, and she just goes, Dad's dead! And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that's not the way you say that to somebody. And I just remember I like threw my phone down.
Gotcha.
And I was so upset.
I can't imagine having to go through that.
It's like, that's not the way I should have heard that.
Exactly, and he didn't want you to hear it in that way. And there's just this feeling of like, I'm sorry that that was your introduction to grief. Because that shouldn't have been the case.
Thank you.
So please know in this way, he's very aware of the circumstances. He just didn't want to leave a mess with this situation. And
I was not expecting to need to hear that. It was just something that I was like, oh, this is how it happened. This is how death happens. But like the trauma in that small moment has affected me in so many ways. I just feel such a release right now knowing that he knew that that was going on and that it's a part of my experience with his death.
Exactly.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the power of grief. We grieve in different ways as time goes on, and I hope that at the very least there's comfort in knowing that he knew what you were going through. He sees that. And he's so proud of you for being able to handle all of this despite that.
Wow.
That's huge.
That was massive, Tyler.
Oh, I love it. I'm so glad.
I can breathe.
The way I would describe this, it just keeps coming through, and it's like, Mom, just having me acknowledge, okay, showing me a circle that always references to
Time.
Yes, and also sometimes addiction, sometimes like cycles, things along those lines. And for some reason, she's bringing up sobriety, and it feels great, feels positive, but they're kind of correlating like 2 events, and I'm trying to figure out what this is.
What's going on there? It's not a wave complex I'm used to seeing.
There's a reference to a decline here in the way this is coming in. Your mom is showing me a line, and it's going like this. And when they do that, it's always a way of referencing to like, I'm doing okay, and then something happens, and then I just kind of, like my quality of life declines. And that's kind of the way I would describe it. There's just a reference with this that's just having me bring up. The thing is that this seemed untimely. This feels like a situation where it's like I shouldn't have gone when I went. And then they're having me bring up, let me see here. She's, to figure out what she's showing me. She's showing me a car, she's showing me a phone call. She's bringing me, it's not her moment of passing, she's bringing me to this thing before, and I don't know why. This is like an event mom's having me highlight. There's a feeling of like, someone was waiting for me to call them, someone was waiting for me to reach out to them, and then they don't get a call from me, they get a call about me. And there's just something about this, the way this is coming in. I think mom's showing me symbolically, she's referencing to being alone, and then she's showing me pressing a button, which is always symbolic for like, trying to get help, trying to get help, and then someone not responding. There's just kind of this feeling of like, hey, what's up? I need someone, like, what's wrong? And then there's not someone there to receive me. It's kind of the way I would describe it, to like,
this is the biggest, like, it's the biggest problem that I have, I think is what you're describing there. I mean, everybody in the family suffered from alcoholism.
Gotcha.
The sobriety thing makes sense.
I see.
I've been sober for 10 years now. I'm the only one in the family that got sober.
Wow.
Mom struggled with it. She was on and off of the wagon. The point of decline was 5 years before Mom died.
I see.
On October 10th of 1998, Mom suffered an aneurysm. The response time, like I know that just failed to call for an ambulance.
Gotcha.
So that would be the aneurysm was going to do what it was going to do no matter if the ambulance came quickly, but this waited for a long time before he called.
I see.
She, when she came out of the hospital, went into the home of this she was reconciling with. The being alone, and this is the biggest problem that I have, it's not the aneurysm. She was physically and mentally disabled for the last 5 years of her life. That was the point of decline.
I see.
The crucial problem is that she was left alone, and she developed bed sores. And the bed sores are the worst thing that can happen to anybody, period. Because here, Mom spent the last 5 years of her life crying in pain, my bottom. She had these huge, like with all the nerves and that pain that she was in I still can't, I can't really handle that very well. You know, I have a lot of personal trauma over the pain and suffering that my mom went through.
Oh, I didn't know this. It's terrible.
All right, I can't even imagine having to go through that. And the way that this feels is, I mean, honestly, she comes through so at peace, and they always do.
I imagine that's how, that's the nature of the soul. The soul has no needs, no fears, no...
Absolutely no attachments.
So of course she's okay.
It's just us, the ones left behind, that are left to deal with that.
I am curious if there's anything coming from any one of my friends that has passed.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what happens. Okay. So the way that this is coming through is basically, I feel like I have to highlight this man. And the way that I would describe this, if I'm kind of connecting with this guy, it feels like this person was very young. It's interesting, when he comes through, he's showing me, weirdly, a monkey on someone's back, which usually indicates having an issue, something that you can't let go of. They're showing me an IV, and that always indicates like something we would put into our bodies. But I feel like I am under the influence of some form of a substance. But then the weird thing is this person didn't necessarily take more than they were used to. There's something weird, because I feel like before there had been this period where they hadn't abused drugs and their tolerance went down. And there's this feeling of, well, this old amount I would have been fine with, but my body's tolerance went down in some capacity. So there's an acknowledgement of this. There's more to this. Is bringing up a female contemporary. Do you know if he had a sister or a girlfriend?
Sister.
Sister. he just keeps bringing up the message towards his sister, basically like the ambiguity thing.
Yeah.
Like she really needs to know that he did not mean to kill himself. Like this was not intentional in the way that it feels. In the months leading up to his passing, I just feel like someone from his past may have kind of either triggered him or put him in some form of a headspace where doing this now would feel like a good idea. Someone just kind of was like, hey, wanna go do this? And then he couldn't not. It's like this person shouldn't have been, that influence shouldn't have been in any way there to trigger me almost. And it kind of comes through.
Yeah.
So that's very much for sister in this way.
Yeah.
Does that make some sense?
100%. My friend Kevin, he lived a couple blocks away from me growing up, and we lost touch. And then I randomly saw him at a recovery meeting, and you know, he was like fresh out of jail and had 60 days of sobriety, and we just kind of picked up a new relationship. We were kids growing up, but you know, him carrying like the monkey on his back, he had very intense anxiety, and it often led him back to relapse.
The horrible thing about this is that it feels like he keeps having me talk about, it doesn't make any sense, going out on a high note, going out on a high note. As odd as it sounds, he's showing me music and he's showing me an arrow, which always references to the future. He's not done, he says. It could mean that what he wasn't able to achieve here, he feels like he'll see some follow through that other people will do in his honor or in his legacy. If they helped create something, then we release the song. It's that kind of thing of like, my name's gonna be attached to it even though I'm not physically here. And by launching this, it honors me. So I know it's a lot to take in, but does any of that make sense? Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you have yet to release since he's passed? Mm-hmm. I need you to know that he feels like doing this, he's gonna be able to get the notoriety he wanted and the fame he wanted.
He wanted to be a rapper. I was like, you know, if you can get a week sober, you can come to the studio and record. And he got a week, and we went to the studio and he recorded 4 songs. And he was just super pumped. It was like this celebratory moment. We're driving home. I dropped him off at his crib, and I got a phone call from his sister the next day. He had, as you said, his tolerance was at a certain point. He had got 7 days sober, so his tolerance went to another point. I think that he took the same amount of drugs that he normally would take, and he overdosed. And you know, he did struggle with suicidal thoughts, but I do believe that it was completely a tolerance thing, like you said, and it wasn't anything intentional. So all of that was spot on.